Here's your exercise. Right now, pause this and set up one automation. Just one. Pick the easiest one. Maybe it's a $25 automatic transfer to savings. Maybe it's a $50 automatic investment contribution. Maybe it's an extra $50 debt payment. Pick one and set it up right now. Don't wait until you finish this audiobook. Don't wait until tomorrow. Do it now. This one action will build momentum. Once you see that first automation working, you'll set up the second one, then the third. Within a month, your entire financial system will be automated. And once it's automated, building wealth becomes inevitable. You don't have to rely on willpower or motivation or discipline. The system does the work for you. Now let's talk about the thing that separates people who make temporary money from people who build permanent wealth. Skill stacking. This is a concept that changed my life, and it'll change yours too. The idea is simple. You take 3 complementary skills and combine them into a unique market position that's worth premium pricing. Most people have one skill, and they compete with everyone else who has that skill. If you're a writer, you compete with millions of other writers. If you're a designer, you compete with millions of other designers. If you're a developer, you compete with millions of other developers. The competition drives down prices and makes it hard to stand out. But if you combine 3 skills that don't usually go together, you create a unique position. You eliminate competition. You can charge premium prices because no one else offers what you offer. Let me give you an example. If you're a writer, you're competing with millions of people. But if you're a writer who also understands sales psychology and data analysis, you're one of maybe a few hundred people. You can position yourself as a conversion copywriter who uses data to optimize results. That's a different market with way less competition and way higher prices. Or let's say you're a graphic designer. Lots of competition. But if you're a graphic designer who also knows web development and user experience research, you're a product designer. Completely different market, completely different pay scale. This is the skill stacking formula. Take 3 skills, combine them in a way that creates a unique value proposition. Position yourself as the go-to person for that specific combination. Charge premium prices, because you're the only one who does what you do. So how do you identify your skill stack? Start with your existing skills. What are you already good at? What do people compliment you on? What do people ask you for help with? Make a list of at least 10 skills. They don't all have to be professional skills. Hobbies count. Life experience counts. Now look for combinations that create a valuable market position. Which 3 skills, when combined, would solve a problem that people will pay well to have solved? This requires some creativity. You might not see the combination right away, but if you sit with it and think about the problems people have in the marketplace, you'll start to see connections. The key is finding a combination that's rare but valuable. Once you identify your skill stack, you need to position yourself around it. This means updating your profiles, your website, your pitch. You're no longer just a writer or just a designer. You're a specific type of specialist with a unique combination of skills that delivers a specific outcome. This positioning allows you to charge 2 to 5 times more than you could charge as a generalist. Because you're not selling a commodity, you're selling a unique solution. And people pay premium prices for unique solutions. Here's what's beautiful about skill stacking. You don't have to be world-class at any of the individual skills. You just have to be good enough. If you're a 7 out of 10 in 3 different skills, the combination makes you a 10 out of 10 in your specific niche. That's the leverage. Most people spend years trying to become a 10 out of 10 in one skill. It's faster and more profitable to become a 7 out of 10 in 3 complementary skills. So here's your exercise. List your top 10 skills right now. Don't overthink it. Just list 10 things you're reasonably good at. Now circle the 3 skills that, when combined, would create the most valuable and unique market position. Think about what problems that combination could solve. Think about who would pay for that solution. Then write a 1-sentence positioning statement. I help blank achieve blank by combining blank, blank, and blank. This is your new identity in the marketplace. This is how you differentiate yourself and command premium pricing. Once you have this positioning, every piece of content you create, every proposal you send, every conversation you have should reinforce it. You're not just another freelancer. You're a specialist with a unique skill stack that delivers specific results. That's worth money. Now let's talk about the thing that most people resist until they have no choice. Passive income. The idea of making money while you sleep sounds like a scam or a fantasy. But it's neither. It's just a different business model. Active income is trading your time for money. You work, you get paid. You don't work, you don't get paid. Passive income is creating an asset once and getting paid repeatedly. You do the work up front, and then the asset generates income with minimal ongoing effort. This is how wealthy people build wealth. They create assets that generate income independent of their time. They use active income to fund their lives while they're building the assets. Then, once the assets are generating enough income, they can choose to keep working or not. That's financial freedom. Here's what passive income is not. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not effortless. It's not truly passive in the beginning. Creating a passive income stream requires significant upfront work. You're building something, a product, a course, a book, a software tool, a content platform, a rental property. Whatever it is, it takes time and effort and often money to create. But once it's created, the ongoing maintenance is minimal compared to the income it generates. That's the leverage. You do the work once and get paid many times. Compare that to active income, where you do the work once and get paid once. Passive income scales in a way that active income never can. So what are the most accessible passive income streams for someone starting from broke? Digital products, courses, ebooks, templates, tools, guides, anything you can create once and sell infinitely with near zero marginal cost. If you have knowledge or skills that other people want to learn, you can package that into a digital product. Let's say you've figured out how to grow an audience on social media. You could create a course teaching other people your system. You charge $50 for the course. You spend 40 hours creating it. If 100 people buy it, you've made $5,000. That's $125 per hour for work you did once. If 500 people buy it, you've made $25,000. Same 40 hours of work. That's the leverage of digital products. The hard part is creating something people actually want to buy. This requires understanding your market. Who are you creating this for? What problem does it solve? Why would someone pay for it instead of finding free information online? The answer to that last question is usually this. Your product needs to save people time or deliver results faster than they could achieve on their own. People pay for speed and convenience and certainty. If your product delivers those things, it'll sell. Here's how I created my first passive income stream. After I'd been freelancing for a few months and had built up some momentum, I noticed a pattern. I kept getting the same questions from new freelancers. How do you find clients? How do you write proposals? How do you set your rates? I was answering these questions over and over. So I decided to create a product that answered all of them in one place. I spent 3 weeks creating a guide. It was basically everything I'd learned in 6 months of freelancing. How to set up your profile. How to write proposals that get responses. How to deliver work that gets great reviews. How to raise your rates. How to scale. I made it a PDF guide with templates and examples. I priced it at $29. Then I shared it in a few online communities where freelancers hung out. The first month, 12 people bought it. That's $348 for work I did once. Not life-changing, but it proved the concept. Over the next year, about 400 people bought that guide. That's almost $12,000 in passive income. I didn't update it. I didn't market it heavily. I just put it out there and let it sell. That experience taught me something crucial. You don't need a huge audience or a massive marketing budget to create passive income. You just need to solve a real problem for a specific group of people and put the solution in front of them. So here's what I want you to do. Think about the knowledge or skills you have that other people are trying to acquire. What do people ask you about? What problems have you solved that others are still struggling with? What could you teach someone in an hour that would save them 10 hours of trial and error? That's your first digital product. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be a 100-page ebook or a 10-module course. It can be a simple guide, a checklist, a template, a worksheet, a short video tutorial. Start small. Create something in a weekend. Price it low, $20 to $50. Put it out there. See if people buy it. If they do, you've just created your first passive income stream. If they don't, you've learned. The goal is not to replace your active income immediately. The goal is to start building assets that generate income independent of your time. Over time, you create more products. You improve your marketing. You build a catalog of assets. Each one generates a little bit of income. But when you have 5 or 10 or 20 products, each generating a little bit of income, it adds up. That's how you build passive income. Not with one giant hit, with a collection of small assets that compound over time. Now, let's talk about time. Because time is the one resource you can't get more of. Money can be earned. Skills can be learned. But time is finite. And the way you use your time determines whether you stay broke or become rich. Wealthy people and broke people have the same 24 hours in a day. The difference is how they allocate those hours. Broke people spend most of their time on low-value activities. Busy work, distractions, tasks that feel productive but don't actually move the needle. Wealthy people are ruthless about protecting their time and focusing it on high-value activities. Activities that directly generate income or build assets or compound over time. This is the wealthy person's calendar. It's not about working more hours. It's about working on the right things. Let me break this down. There are 3 types of activities: income-producing activities, necessary activities, and time-wasting activities. Income-producing activities are things that directly lead to money in your account: sending proposals, closing sales, creating products, building systems, marketing, networking with potential clients. These activities have a clear line to revenue. If you do more of them, you make more money. Necessary activities are things that have to be done but don't directly produce income: answering emails, paying bills, grocery shopping, laundry. These things maintain your life and business, but they don't generate money. Time-wasting activities are things that neither produce income nor are necessary: scrolling social media, watching TV, playing video games, endless research without implementation. These activities are often disguised as productive or necessary, but they're not. They're just ways to avoid doing the hard work of income production. Here's what I want you to do. For the next 7 days, track how you spend every hour. At the end of each day, categorize your hours into those 3 categories: income producing, necessary, time wasting. At the end of the week, add up the totals. How many hours did you spend on income producing activities? If it's less than 20 hours per week, that's your problem. You're not spending enough time on the things that actually make you money. Most broke people spend less than 10 hours per week on income-producing activities. They spend 40 hours at a job that pays just enough to survive. Then they spend their remaining time on necessary tasks and time-wasting activities. They never create margin for wealth building. Wealthy people spend 30 to 50 hours per week on income-producing activities. They ruthlessly eliminate or delegate everything else. Now I know what you're thinking. I don't have 30 hours per week to spend on income-producing activities. I have a job. I have responsibilities. I have kids. I get it. You're not going to go from 10 hours to 50 hours overnight. But you can go from 10 to 15. You can find 5 extra hours per week. Wake up an hour earlier. Cut out 2 hours of TV. Spend your lunch break working on your side business instead of scrolling your phone. 5 hours per week is 260 hours per year. That's the equivalent of 6.5 full work weeks. Imagine what you could build with 6.5 uninterrupted weeks of focused work. That's what 5 extra hours per week gives you. And once you start seeing results from those 5 hours, you'll find 5 more. Then 5 more. Over time, you'll restructure your entire life around maximizing income-producing time. Because you'll realize that's the only thing that matters. Everything else is either supporting that or stealing from it. Let me give you my exact weekly time allocation when I was building my wealth. Monday through Friday, I woke up at 5:30. I had 90 minutes before my day job started. I spent that 90 minutes on income-producing activities, sending proposals, creating products, marketing, no distractions, just focused work. That's 7.5 hours per week right there. During my lunch break, I had 45 minutes. I spent 30 minutes on income-producing activities and 15 minutes eating. That's 2.5 hours per week. After work, I had 3 hours before I needed to wind down for bed. I spent 1 hour on necessary activities like cooking dinner and cleaning up. I spent 30 minutes on personal time to decompress. And I spent 90 minutes on income-producing activities. That's another 7.5 hours per week. On weekends, I spent Saturday morning about 4 hours on income-producing activities. I took Saturday afternoon and evening off completely. On Sunday, I spent 2 hours on income-producing activities and used the rest of the day for rest and relationships. Total for the week, 23.5 hours on income-producing activities. I had a full-time job. I had a life. But I found 23.5 hours per week to build wealth. And that's what made the difference. Here's the framework for restructuring your time. First, identify your peak performance hours. For most people, it's the morning. Your brain is fresh. Your willpower is high. Your focus is sharp. Guard those hours fiercely. Use them only for income-producing activities. Don't waste them on email or social media or busy work. Second, batch your necessary activities. Instead of doing laundry whenever, do it all on Sunday afternoon. Instead of grocery shopping whenever you run out of things, go once a week with a list. Instead of answering emails throughout the day, set 2 specific times for email processing. Batching reduces context switching and makes necessary activities more efficient. Third, eliminate or delegate as much as possible. Do you really need to clean your house? Or can you hire a cleaner for $50 and buy back 3 hours? Do you really need to mow your lawn, or can you pay someone $30 and buy back 90 minutes? Every hour you buy back is an hour you can invest in income-producing activities. If your hourly rate is $50 or more, paying someone else to do $20 per hour work is a profitable trade. Fourth, use time blocking. Put your income-producing activities on your calendar as non-negotiable appointments. Treat them like you would a meeting with a client or your boss. Don't move them. Don't skip them. Show up for yourself the way you'd show up for someone else. Here's a practice script for protecting your time. Someone asks you to do something during your income-producing time block. An old friend wants to grab coffee. A family member wants help with something. A colleague wants to chat. Here's what you say. I really appreciate you thinking of me. I'm not available at that time, but I'd love to connect. Can we find another time that works? If they push back, you say, I'm working on a project that's really important to me, and I've committed that time to it. I need to honor that commitment. Let's find another time. Most people will respect that. If they don't, that's information about the relationship. People who support your growth will understand and accommodate. People who don't support your growth will make you feel guilty for prioritizing your goals. Pay attention to that. Here's a visualization exercise. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture your life 1 year from now. In this future, you've spent at least 20 hours per week for the past 52 weeks on income-producing activities. That's over 1,000 hours of focused work on building wealth. What does your life look like? How much money do you have in the bank? What income streams have you built? How does it feel to wake up every day knowing you're in control of your financial destiny? Now picture the alternative. You've spent the last year the same way you spent last year, wishing things were different but not changing your behavior. Same job, same income, same stress, same feeling of being trapped. Which future do you want? The choice you make today determines which future you get. Time is going to pass either way. The question is what you do with it. So here's your checkpoint. Do the 7-day time audit starting today. Track every hour. At the end of the week, calculate how much time you spent on income-producing activities. Then commit to increasing that number by 5 hours per week for the next month. Find those 5 hours. Protect them. Use them only for activities that directly generate income or build assets. Nothing else. This one change will have a bigger impact on your wealth than almost anything else you do. Now let's dive deeper into passive income, because this is where the real leverage happens. Active income has a ceiling. You can only work so many hours. You can only charge so much per hour. Even if you're making $200 an hour, if you work 50 hours a week, you're capped at about $500,000 per year. That's great money, but it still requires you to show up and work. Passive income breaks that ceiling. It decouples your time from your earnings. You do the work once and get paid repeatedly. This is how people build real wealth. They create assets that generate income whether they're working or not. Let me walk you through the complete process of creating a passive income stream from scratch. We'll use a digital product as the example because it's the most accessible for most people. But the principles apply to other passive income models too. Step 1. Identify your. Step 4. Create the minimum viable product. Don't try to create the perfect, comprehensive, all-encompassing product. Create the simplest version that solves the problem. If you're creating a course, maybe it's just 5 video lessons and a workbook. If you're creating a guide, maybe it's a 20-page PDF with step-by-step instructions. If you're creating templates, maybe it's 3 templates with instructions for how to use them. Get it done in a weekend or 2. Ship it. You can always improve it later based on customer feedback. But if you wait until it's perfect, you'll never ship it. And if you never ship it, you'll never make money. Step 5. Price it appropriately. Most people underprice their first product because they don't feel it's worth much or they're afraid no one will buy. Don't make that mistake. If your product solves a real problem and saves people time or money, it has value. A common pricing range for digital products is between $27 and $297. If you're targeting beginners with a simple solution, go toward the lower end. If you're targeting professionals with a high-value solution, go toward the higher end. Remember, price is a signal of value. If you price too low, people will assume it's low quality. If you price too high without proven credibility, people won't trust you. Find the sweet spot. A good rule of thumb, price your first product at what feels slightly uncomfortable. If you're completely comfortable with the price, you're probably underpricing. Step 6. Create a simple sales page. You don't need a fancy website. You can use a tool like Gumroad or Teachable that provides simple templates. Your sales page needs to include the following elements. A compelling headline that speaks to the problem you solve. A description of who the product is for. A clear statement of what they'll learn or get. Social proof if you have it. Testimonials, results. Even if it's from beta users. A clear price. A buy button. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it. The goal is to make it easy for someone to understand what you're offering and make a purchase decision. Step 7. Drive traffic. You have a product. You have a sales page. Now you need to get people to the page. If you have an existing audience, email them. Post about it on social media. Share it in relevant communities. If you don't have an audience, you'll need to build one or use paid traffic. Building an audience is a longer-term play. You create valuable content consistently. You show up in places where your target audience hangs out. You provide value for free. You build trust. Then when you have something to sell, people already know and trust you. Paid traffic is faster but requires budget. You can run Facebook ads, Google ads, or ads on platforms where your audience spends time. Start small. $50 to $100. Test the message. See what converts. Scale what works. Cut what doesn't. Step 8. Deliver and improve. When someone buys your product, deliver it immediately. Email them the PDF. Give them access to the course. Send them the templates. Whatever it is. Make the delivery seamless. Then ask for feedback. What did they like? What was confusing? What would they add? Use that feedback to improve version 2. Over time, your product will get better and better. And as it gets better, you can raise the price or create more advanced versions. Let me walk you through a real example. I wanted to create a passive income stream teaching people how to write better emails, specifically cold outreach emails for freelancers. I knew how to do this. I'd sent hundreds of cold emails and had a response rate of about 20%, which is way above average. Step 1, expertise identified. Step 2, problem identified. Freelancers struggle to get responses to their outreach emails and lose potential clients. Step 3, validation. I went to freelancing Facebook groups and saw dozens of posts about people not getting responses. Clear problem. I created a simple landing page. Cold email templates that actually get responses. $27. I posted it in one Facebook group. 12 people bought in the first week. Strong validation. Step 4. I created the MVP. I wrote a 15-page guide with 5 email templates, explanations of why they work, and instructions for customizing them. Took me about 6 hours. Step 5, pricing. $27 felt right. Not too cheap, not too expensive. Step 6, sales page. I used Gumroad. Took me an hour to set up. Step 7, traffic. I posted about it in 3 more freelancing groups and on my LinkedIn. Step 8, delivery and improvement. Everyone who bought got the PDF immediately. I asked for feedback. A few people said they wanted more examples. So I added 3 more templates in version 2. In the first month, I made $675 from that product. 25 sales. In the first year, I made about $8,000. I didn't touch the product after the first month, except to add those 3 additional templates. $8,000 for maybe 10 hours of total work. That's $800 per hour. And it's still selling today, 3 years later. Passive income. I did the work once. I get paid repeatedly. That's the model. Now, $8,000 a year isn't life-changing. But what if you create 5 products that each make $8,000 a year? That's $40,000 in passive income. What if you create 10? That's $80,000. What if one of them takes off and makes $50,000 a year? Now you're at $130,000 in passive income from products you created over a couple years. You see how this compounds? Each product is a small bet. Most will do okay. A few will do great. One might be a huge winner, but they all add up. Here's your product creation micro-challenge. Week 1, complete steps 1 and 2. Identify expertise and problem. Week 2, validate the market. Spend time in communities, look for questions and pain points, or create a landing page and test it. Week 3, create your MVP, don't overthink it. Just get it done. Week 4, set up your sales page and pricing. Week 5, start driving traffic. Post in communities, email your network, create content about the problem you solve. Week 6 through 8, make sales, deliver product, gather feedback, improve. By week 8, you should have your first passive income stream live. Even if it only makes $100 in the first month, you've proven the model. Now you can create product number 2, then 3, then 4. Over a year, you could have 6 to 10 passive income streams. That's real wealth building. Let me give you another passive income model that's even more passive than digital products. Content monetization. This is where you create valuable content once, and it generates income through ads, affiliates, or sponsorships for years. The most common platforms for this are YouTube, blogs, and podcasts. Here's how it works. You pick a niche, something you're knowledgeable about and passionate enough to create content about consistently. You create high-quality content that solves problems, entertains, or educates. You publish consistently. You build an audience. Once you have an audience, you monetize through multiple streams: ad revenue, affiliate commissions, sponsorships, your own products. The content you created months or years ago continues to generate income because it continues to get views or downloads. I know someone who started a YouTube channel teaching people how to edit videos. She posted one video per week for 2 years. 90-minute videos showing her editing process, explaining techniques, answering common questions. After 2 years, she had about 200 videos and 50,000 subscribers. Those videos now generate about $4,000 per month in ad revenue, plus another $3,000 per month in affiliate commissions from recommending editing software and equipment, plus another $5,000 per month from selling her own courses. That's $12,000 per month in income from content she created over 2 years. She still posts new videos, but even if she stopped tomorrow, those 200 videos would continue generating income. People are still searching for video editing tutorials. They're finding her videos. They're watching them. She's getting paid. That's passive income. The work she did 2 years ago is still paying her today, and it'll keep paying her for years to come. The key to content monetization is picking the right niche. You want something with enough demand that people are searching for it or interested in consuming content about it. But you don't want something so saturated that it's impossible to stand out. A good niche is the intersection of 3 things: your expertise or passion, market demand, underserved audience. If you can find a niche that hits all 3, you can build a content platform that generates meaningful passive income. And the beautiful thing about content is it compounds. The more content you create, the more entry points you have. The more entry points, the more traffic. The more traffic, the more income. And old content continues working for you while you create new content. Here's your content monetization micro-challenge. Month 1. Pick your niche and platform. Research what's working in that niche. Study creators who are successful. Understand what content resonates. Month 2. Create your first 10 pieces of content. Videos, blog posts, podcast episodes, whatever format you chose. Focus on quality and solving real problems. Don't worry about views or downloads yet. Just build your library. Month 3. Publish consistently. Keep creating. Keep publishing. Start engaging with your audience. Respond to comments. Ask questions. Build community. Month 4 through 6. Keep publishing. By month 6, you should have at least 25 pieces of content live. You should start seeing some organic growth. Month 7 through 12. Keep publishing. Apply for monetization if you're using YouTube or another platform with ad revenue. Start including affiliate links if you're recommending products. Create your first digital product to sell to your audience. By month 12, you should have about 50 pieces of content and multiple monetization streams set up. You might only be making a couple $100s per month at this point, but you've built the foundation. Keep going. Year 2, your income will grow. Year 3, it could be substantial. This is a long-term play, but it's one of the most truly passive income models out there once it's established. Now let's talk about scaling, because at some point, you're going to hit a ceiling. You're going to max out your own time and capacity. You can only work so many hours. You can only handle so many clients. You can only create so many products. If you want to go from making a decent income to making real wealth, you have to scale. And scaling requires removing yourself as the bottleneck. This is where most people get stuck. They build a freelance business or a side hustle that generates good income, but it's entirely dependent on them. If they stop working, the income stops. That's not wealth. That's just a job you created for yourself. Wealth requires leverage. It requires systems and people and technology doing the work instead of you. Let me tell you about the moment I realized I needed to scale. I was 6 months into my freelancing journey. I was making about $7,000 a month, more than I'd ever made in my life. I felt successful. I felt like I'd figured it out. But I was also working 70 hours a week. I was exhausted. I couldn't take a day off without losing income. I couldn't get sick. I couldn't go on vacation. Every hour I wasn't working was an hour I wasn't earning. And I started to realize that I'd just traded one trap for another. I wasn't broke anymore, but I wasn't free either. I was stuck on a treadmill of my own making. Then something happened that changed everything. I got the flu. Not just a little cold. Full on, can't get out of bed. Fever sweating through the sheets flu. I was down for a week. And during that week, I made $0. My clients were waiting for deliverables I couldn't produce. Some of them got frustrated and left. I lost about $3,000 in that 1 week. But worse than the money, I lost the illusion that I'd built something sustainable. I realized I was one illness away from losing everything. One accident, one family emergency. If I couldn't work, the whole thing collapsed. That's when I understood. I didn't have a business. I had a very expensive job. And if I wanted real wealth, real freedom, I needed to build something that could run without me. Scaling has three components: systematization, delegation, and automation. Let's start with systematization. This means documenting your processes so that someone else could replicate them. Most people keep everything in their heads. They've figured out a way to do things that works, but it's not written down anywhere. This makes it impossible to delegate because no one else knows how to do what you do. Systematization fixes that. You document every step of every process: how you find clients, how you onboard them, how you deliver your service, how you handle revisions, how you collect payment, how you ask for referrals, everything. You create standard operating procedures for every part of your business. This feels tedious. It feels like a waste of time when you could be making money. But it's an investment. Once your processes are documented, you can train someone else to do them. You can delegate. You can scale. Here's exactly how I systematized my business. I started with my client onboarding process because that's something I did multiple times per week. I opened a document and I narrated every single step as if I was teaching someone who knew nothing. Step 1. When a new client says yes to working together, I send them a welcome email. The email includes 3 things: a thank you for choosing to work with me, a brief overview of what happens next, a link to my onboarding questionnaire. Step 2. I create a folder for them in my Google Drive. The folder includes subfolders for drafts, finals, and reference materials. Step 3. Once they fill out the questionnaire, I schedule a kickoff call. The call happens within 48 hours of them signing up. On the call, I ask specific questions about their goals, their audience, and their success metrics. I take notes in a template document. Step 4. After the call, I send a summary email confirming everything we discussed and outlining the timeline. Step 5. I create their first deliverable based on the notes from the kickoff call. I wrote all of that out in excruciating detail. Every email template, every question I asked on the kickoff call, every step of my creation process. When I was done, I had a 12-page document. It took me about 6 hours to create, 6 hours that I could have spent making money. But once it was done, I had something valuable. I had a document that someone else could follow and produce the same results I was producing. That document became worth more than any 6 hours of client work, because it gave me the ability to scale. I did the same thing for every other process in my business: client prospecting, proposal writing, content creation, quality control, invoicing, client offboarding. Each process got its own document. Each document was detailed enough that someone with basic skills in my field could follow it and execute. This took about 3 weeks to complete. 3 weeks of working on my business instead of in my business. 3 weeks of earning less money because I was spending time documenting instead of delivering. It was uncomfortable, but it was necessary. Here's your day-by-day challenge for systematization. Day 1. Pick your most frequent process, the thing you do over and over. Open a document and start writing every step. Don't skip anything. Assume the person reading this knows nothing. Day 2. Keep writing. Get to at least 5 pages. Include screenshots if helpful. Include email templates. Include decision trees for when things don't go according to plan. Day 3. Read through what you wrote. Fill in any gaps. Make it clearer. Day 4. Test it. Either walk through the process yourself following only what you wrote, or have someone else try to follow it. See where they get confused. Day 5. Revise based on the test. Make it even clearer. Day 6. Move on to your second most frequent process. Start documenting. Day 7. Keep going. Get the second process to at least 3 pages. Day 8. Continue refining. Day 9 through 14. Document your third process. Day 15 through 21. Document your fourth process. By the end of 3 weeks, you'll have 4 core processes documented. That's enough to start delegating. Delegation is the next step. This is where you bring in other people to handle parts of your business. You start by delegating the low-value tasks, the things that are necessary but don't require your specific expertise: admin work, scheduling, email management, basic customer service. You hire a virtual assistant for 10 hours a week. You pay them $15 to $25 per hour. That's $150 to $250 per week. In exchange, you get 10 hours of your time back. If your time is worth $50 per hour or more, this is a profitable trade. You spend $250 to free up 10 hours. You use those 10 hours on income-producing activities that generate way more than $250. That's leverage. As you grow, you delegate more. You hire a contractor to handle client work. You hire a marketer to generate leads. You hire a project manager to coordinate everything. Slowly, you remove yourself from the day-to-day operations. You move into a strategic role where you're working on the business instead of in the business. But here's where most people mess up delegation. They hire someone, give them vague instructions, get disappointed with the results, and conclude that it's easier to just do everything themselves. I made this mistake. My first attempt at hiring a virtual assistant was a disaster. I posted a job listing. I got 200 applications. I picked someone who seemed competent. I paid them for 20 hours of work, and the work they delivered was terrible. Not because they were incompetent, but because I didn't train them properly. I didn't give them clear processes to follow. I just assumed they'd figure it out. They didn't. I wasted $400 and 20 hours of their time and got nothing useful in return. I was frustrated. I almost gave up on delegation entirely. But then I realized the problem wasn't delegation. The problem was my approach. I tried again. This time, I used the processes I documented. I posted a job listing with very specific requirements. I asked applicants to answer 3 questions that would show me whether they'd actually read the job description and understood what. Here's the delegation framework I use now. Step 1. Only delegate tasks for which you have documented processes. If it's not documented, document it first. Step 2. Hire slow. Don't rush. Take time to find the right person. Use test projects to evaluate skills before committing to ongoing work. Step 3. Train thoroughly. Don't assume they'll figure it out. Walk them through everything. Have them practice. Give feedback. Step 4. Start with small tasks. Don't hand over your most important client on day 1. Give them something low risk where mistakes won't be catastrophic. Step 5. Give clear feedback. When they do something well, tell them specifically what was good. When they make a mistake, explain exactly what went wrong and how to fix it next time. Step 6. Gradually increase responsibility. As they prove competence, give them bigger tasks. Step 7. Pay well. If you want to keep good people, pay them fairly. Don't try to get the cheapest labor. Pay for quality and treat your team well. They'll stick around and get better over time. Let me give you a real example of a delegation conversation I had. I'd been working with a virtual assistant named Maria for about 3 months. She was handling email management and scheduling. She was good, reliable, detail-oriented. I wanted to expand her role to include basic client communication. Here's how that conversation went. I said, Maria, you've been doing great work on email and scheduling. I want to expand what you're handling. How would you feel about taking on some client communication? She said, I'd be interested, but I want to make sure I don't mess anything up. What would that look like? I said, good question. Right now, when clients email with questions or requests, those emails come to me and I respond. I want to move some of that to you. Specifically, I want you to handle routine questions. Things like timeline clarifications, process questions, simple feedback responses. Anything that requires strategic decisions or problem solving would still come to me. Does that make sense? She said, yes, that makes sense. How would I know which emails to respond to and which to escalate to you? I said, great question. I'm going to create a decision tree for you. It'll list common types of emails and tell you whether to respond directly or escalate. For the ones you respond to, I'll give you templates and guidelines. For the first 2 weeks, I want you to draft responses but send them to me for review before they go to the client. That way I can give you feedback and you can learn what good responses look like. After 2 weeks, if you're consistently hitting the mark, you can send responses directly. Sound good? She said, that sounds perfect. When do I start? I said, I'll have the decision tree and templates to you by end of day tomorrow. We'll do a training session on Wednesday to walk through everything. Then you can start drafting responses. That's what good delegation looks like. Clear expectations, clear processes, training, gradual increase in responsibility, support and feedback. Within a month, Maria was handling 60% of my client communications. That freed up about 8 hours per week for me. 8 hours I used to prospect for new clients and create new products. My income went up 30% because I had that time back. And Maria got a raise because she was delivering more value. Everybody won. Here's your delegation micro-challenge. Week 1. Write a job description for one role you want to delegate. Be specific about tasks, skills required, and expectations. Week 2. Post the job on a platform like Upwork or hire a virtual assistant service. Include screening questions in your job post. Week 3. Review applications. Narrow it down to 5 candidates. Week 4. Interview those 5. Ask them to walk through how they'd handle specific scenarios. Give them a paid test project. Week 5. Hire the person who performed best on the test project. Week 6. Train them thoroughly using your documented processes. Week 7. Give them their first real assignment. Something small and low risk. Week 8. Review their work. Give detailed feedback. Make corrections together. Week 9. Give them a second assignment, slightly bigger. Week 10. Continue this pattern of gradually increasing responsibility. By week 12, you should have successfully delegated at least one significant area of your business. You'll have freed up hours every week. Use those hours on income production. Measure the results. If delegation is working, expand it. Delegate more tasks. Hire more people. Keep scaling. Automation is the third component. This is using technology to do work that doesn't require a human. Email sequences that nurture leads automatically. Payment systems that handle invoicing and collection. Project management tools that track progress and send reminders. CRM systems that manage your client relationships. Chatbots that answer common questions. The more you can automate, the less human labor you need, and the more profitable your business becomes. Automation requires an upfront investment of time and sometimes money to set up. But once it's running, it works for you 24/7 without complaining or needing a paycheck. This is how you scale beyond your own capacity. You systematize so things can be taught. You delegate so other people can execute. You automate so technology can handle the repetitive tasks. The result is a business that grows independent of your time. You've created a machine that generates income whether you're working or not. That's when you've truly transitioned from broke to wealthy. Let me walk you through the specific automation systems I built. First, email marketing. When I was doing everything manually, I'd have conversations with potential clients. They'd express interest, and then I'd have to remember to follow up. I'd forget. I'd lose deals. It was chaos. So I set up an email automation system using a tool called ConvertKit. It costs about $30 a month. Here's how it works. When someone fills out a form on my website expressing interest in working with me, they automatically get added to a sequence. Email 1 goes out immediately. It thanks them for their interest and gives them a free resource related to what they're looking for. Email 2 goes out 3 days later. It shares a case study of results I got for a similar client. Email 3 goes out 5 days after that. It addresses common objections and concerns. Email 4 goes out 1 week later. It makes a direct offer to work together with a clear call to action. If they don't respond, email 5 goes out 2 weeks later with a different angle. This entire sequence runs automatically. I wrote the emails once. They've been sent to hundreds of people. Some of those people have become paying clients without me having a single one-on-one conversation until they were ready to buy. The conversion rate is about 8%. That means 8 out of every 100 people who enter the sequence eventually become clients. The average client is worth $2,000 to me. So if 100 people go through the sequence, I make $16,000. I did the work once. The system generates revenue forever. That's automation. Second automation, invoicing and payment collection. I used to manually create invoices, send them to clients, then follow up when payments were late. It took hours every week. Now I use a tool called Stripe. When a client agrees to work with me, I send them a payment link. They enter their card information. They get charged automatically on the schedule we agreed to. Monthly retainer, payment on delivery, whatever it is. The system handles it. If a payment fails, the system automatically retries and sends the client a notification. I don't touch it. The money shows up in my bank account. I get a notification. That's it. This saves me probably 5 hours a week and ensures I never lose money because I forgot to invoice someone or didn't follow up on a late payment. Third automation, social media posting. I create content as part of my marketing strategy. But posting that content every day manually is time-consuming, so I use a scheduling tool called Buffer. I spend 2 hours once a week creating content. I write posts. I design graphics. I schedule everything. Then the tool automatically posts to all my platforms at the optimal times. I'm getting daily visibility without daily manual work. This automation probably saves me 7 hours per week. Fourth automation, meeting scheduling. I used to waste so much time on back-and-forth emails trying to find a time that worked for both me and a potential client or partner. 5 or 6 emails just to schedule one meeting. Now I use Calendly. I have a link that shows my availability. When someone wants to meet with me, I send them the link. They pick a time that works for them from my available slots. The meeting gets added to my calendar automatically. They get a confirmation email with a Zoom link. They get a reminder email the day before. All automatic. This saves at least 3 hours per week and makes me look more professional. The total cost of these automation tools is about $150 per month. The time they save me is at least 20 hours per week. My hourly rate at this point is over $100. So these tools save me $2,000 worth of time every week. That's a return of 13 to 1. For every dollar I spend on automation, I get $13 back in time savings. And that's not even counting the revenue increase from better follow-up and more consistent marketing. Automation is the best investment you can make in your business. Here's your automation implementation plan. Week 1. Identify the 3 most time-consuming repetitive tasks in your business. Things you do over and over that don't require creative thinking. Week 2. Research. Now let me tell you about someone who took this system and ran with it. A guy named Jason. He ran a web design business. When I met him, he was making about $80,000 a year and working 60-hour weeks. He was drowning. He couldn't scale because he was doing everything himself. Design, client communication, project management, invoicing, marketing, everything. I walked him through the systematization, delegation, and automation framework. It took him 3 months to implement. 3 months of uncomfortable change. 3 months of working on systems instead of in his business. His income actually dropped during those 3 months because he was spending less time on billable work. It was scary. He almost quit halfway through. But I encouraged him to stick with it, to trust the process. Month 4, things started clicking. His documented processes meant he could train a junior designer to handle simpler projects. His automated email sequences were nurturing leads without his involvement. His scheduling tool eliminated meeting coordination busywork. He was starting to see results. Month 6, he hired a project manager to coordinate everything. Suddenly, he wasn't the bottleneck anymore. His team could work without him. Month 9, he doubled his client load without increasing his working hours. He went from 5 clients to 10 clients. His income jumped to $160,000. And he was working 40 hours a week instead of 60. Month 12, he crossed $300,000 in revenue. He had a team of 4 people. He was working 30 hours a week. Most of that time was spent on strategy and business development, not execution. He'd gone from solo freelancer to business owner. From working in the business to working on the business. That's the power of systematization, delegation, and automation combined. That's how you scale. That's how you build real wealth. Here's your scaling checkpoint. Right now, pause and do this assessment. On a scale of 1 to 10, how dependent is your income on you personally showing up and doing the work? If it's an 8 or higher, you have a scaling problem. Write down the 3 biggest bottlenecks in your business right now. The things that only you can do that prevent growth. For each bottleneck, write down 1 way you could systematize, delegate, or automate it. Pick one, just one. Commit to implementing that solution in the next 30 days. This is how you start the scaling process. 1 bottleneck at a time. 1 solution at a time. Over the course of a year, you'll remove a dozen bottlenecks. Your business will be unrecognizable. Your income will be unrecognizable. And most importantly, your life will be unrecognizable. You'll have freedom, time, options. That's what scaling gives you. Now let's talk about investing. Because making money is only half the equation. Keeping it and growing it is the other half. And this is where most people fail. They finally start making decent income, and they immediately inflate their lifestyle to match. Bigger apartment, nicer car, more expensive habits. They're making more, but they're not building wealth. Because wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about how much you keep and how well you invest what you keep. If you make $100,000 and spend $95,000, you're not wealthy. You're just high-income broke. But if you make $50,000 and invest $20,000, you're on a path to wealth. The difference is the gap between income and expenses and what you do with that gap. Here's the truth about investing that nobody wants to hear. It's boring. There's no secret strategy. There's no shortcut. There's no get-rich-quick scheme that actually works. Investing is simple. You take money you don't need right now and you put it into assets that grow over time. You leave it there for years or decades. You reinvest the returns. You let compound interest do its magic. That's it. The formula is stupidly simple. The hard part is having the discipline to execute it consistently for long enough to see results. Most people can't do that. They get impatient. They want results now. They chase hot stocks or crypto or real estate deals they don't understand. They lose money. They get discouraged. They quit. Then they tell themselves investing doesn't work. But investing does work. It's the most reliable wealth-building tool in history. You just have to do it right. So what does doing it right look like? First, you need an emergency fund. This is 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account. This money is not an investment. It's insurance. It's there to protect you when life happens. Car breaks down, medical emergency, job loss, whatever. Without an emergency fund, you'll be forced to go into debt when emergencies happen. And debt destroys wealth faster than anything else. So before you invest a single dollar, build your emergency fund. Let's say your monthly expenses are $3,000. You need $9,000 to $18,000 in your emergency fund. That feels like a mountain when you're starting from broke. But here's how you do it. You save $500 a month. In 18 months, you have $9,000. In 3 years, you have $18,000. It's not fast, but it's achievable. And once you have that cushion, everything changes. You sleep better. You make better decisions. You stop operating from a place of fear and scarcity. Once you have your emergency fund, you can start investing. And here's the strategy. Low-cost index funds. That's it. No stock picking. No crypto gambling. No complicated option strategies. Just boring, simple index funds. An index fund is a basket of stocks that tracks a market index like the S&P 500. When you buy an index fund, you're buying a tiny piece of the 500 largest companies in America. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Tesla, all of them. You're not betting on one company. You're betting on the entire economy. And over long periods of time, the economy goes up. Yes, there are crashes. Yes, there are downturns. But over decades, the trend is up. The S&P 500 has returned an average of about 10% per year over the last century. Some years more, some years less, but the average is around 10%. If you invest consistently in a low-cost index fund and leave it alone, you'll capture most of that return. Here's what that looks like in practice. Let's say you invest $500 per month into an index fund. That's $6,000 per year. If you do that for 30 years and earn an average of 10% per year, you'll have over $1 million. Let me say that again. $500 per month for 30 years equals $1 million. That's not a get-rich-quick scheme. That's just math. Compound interest, time, consistency. That's the formula. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't require you to be smart or lucky or well-connected. It just requires you to start and stick with it. But here's where it gets hard. The psychological traps. The market will crash multiple times during your investing journey. You'll see your account balance drop by 30 or 40 or 50%. It'll feel like you're losing everything. You'll be tempted to sell, to cut your losses, to get out before it gets worse. Don't. Every market crash in history has been followed by a recovery. Every single one. The people who panic and sell lock in their losses. The people who stay invested and keep buying through the crash come out way ahead. Because when the market is down, you're buying stocks at a discount. You're getting more shares for your money. And when the market recovers, those shares you bought at a discount are worth way more. Let me tell you about 2020, the COVID crash. In March 2020, the market dropped 34% in about 3 weeks. People were panicking. The news was apocalyptic. Everyone was convinced this was the big one. The crash that wouldn't recover. I had about $150,000 invested at that point. In 3 weeks, my account dropped to about $100,000. I'd lost $50,000. On paper, anyway. It felt awful. Every time I looked at my account, I felt sick. But I didn't sell. I knew the principle. Stay invested. Keep buying. This is just a sale on stocks. So I kept my automatic contributions going. $500 a week going into the market while everything was crashing. It felt insane. It felt like throwing money into a fire. But I trusted the math. I trusted history. By August, the market had fully recovered. By December, it was at all-time highs. That money I'd invested during the crash had grown by 30, 40, 50%. If I'd panicked and sold in March, I would have locked in a $50,000 loss. Instead, I made money. That experience reinforced the lesson. Market crashes are buying opportunities, not selling opportunities. Here's the framework I use for investing. 90% goes into boring index funds, specifically 70% in a total U.S. stock market index fund, 20% in an international stock market index fund, 10% in a bond index fund. This is called a 3-fund portfolio. It's simple. It's diversified. It's low cost. The expense ratios on these funds are typically under 0.1%. That means for every $10,000 you have invested, you're paying less than $10 a year in fees. Compare that to actively managed funds that charge 1% to 2%. On a $100,000 portfolio, that difference is $1,000 to $2,000 a year. Over decades, high fees will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost returns. Low-cost index funds are the way. The remaining 10% of my investing. That's my play money. That's where I take slightly more risk. Individual stocks if. Here's your investing action plan. Week 1, open a brokerage account. Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. They're all good. It takes 15 minutes. Week 2, Link your bank account to your brokerage account. Set up an automatic monthly transfer. Start with whatever you can afford, even if it's $50. Week 3. Buy your first index fund. Look for a total stock market index fund or an S&P 500 index fund. Make sure it has low expense ratios, under 0.2%. Week 4. Set up automatic investments. Every month, on the day you get paid, money moves from your checking account to your brokerage account and automatically buys more shares of your index fund. Week 5 through 8. Don't look at your account. Seriously, don't check it. You're building a long-term wealth machine. Daily fluctuations don't matter. Week 9. Check in. Look at your balance. Notice that it's grown. Not because the market went up necessarily, but because you've been consistently adding money. Week 10 through 12. Keep contributing. Don't change anything. Just let it run. After 12 weeks, you'll have built the habit. Investing will be automatic. You won't even think about it, and that's when wealth building becomes inevitable. Now let's talk about the relapse-proofing plan for investing. Because here's what happens. You start investing. You build momentum. Your account grows. And then something happens. The market crashes. Or you have an unexpected expense. Or you get tempted to use that money for something else. And you stop contributing. Or worse, you withdraw money. This is the number one reason people don't build wealth through investing. They start and stop. They get on the path and then get off. Then they get back on. Then off again. This inconsistency destroys compounding. So you need a relapse-proofing plan. Rule 1. Never look at your investment account when the market is crashing. Seriously, if you see the news talking about a market crash, do not open your brokerage app. You will panic. You will make bad decisions. Just don't look. Keep your automatic contributions going and ignore the noise. Rule 2. Separate your emergency fund from your investment account. If unexpected expenses come up, you pull from your emergency fund, not your investments. This is why the emergency fund exists. Rule 3. Increase your investment contributions whenever your income increases. Got a raise? Increase your automatic investment by that same amount. Made extra money from a side project? Put half of it into investments. This ensures your investment pace accelerates as your income grows. Rule 4. Set calendar reminders to review your investment strategy once a year. Not once a month, not once a week. Once a year. On that one day, you check your balance. You make sure you're still on track. You adjust your allocation if needed. Then you close the app and don't look again for another year. Rule 5. Write down your why. Why are you investing? What's the future you're building? Financial independence? Early retirement? Freedom to quit your job and start a business? Write it down. When you're tempted to stop contributing or to withdraw money, read your why. Remind yourself what you're working toward. Here's a practice script for when you're tempted to panic sell during a market crash. The market is down 20%. Your account is down $30,000. You're freaking out. You're thinking, I should sell before I lose more. Here's what you say to yourself. This is normal. Markets crash. It happens every few years. Every crash in history has recovered. Every single one. I'm not investing for next month. I'm investing for 20 or 30 years. This crash is temporary. The long-term trend is up. If I sell now, I lock in my losses. If I stay invested, I'll recover and grow. In fact, this is a buying opportunity. Stocks are on sale. I should be buying more, not selling. I'm going to close this app. I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to keep my automatic contributions going. I'm going to check back in a year and see that I made the right decision. Repeat that script. Internalize it. Make it automatic. When the next crash comes, and it will come, you'll be prepared. Now let's talk about relationships. Because the people you surround yourself with will either accelerate your journey from broke to rich or sabotage it. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. Some of the people in your life right now don't want you to succeed. Not because they're bad people, but because your success threatens their worldview. It forces them to confront their own inaction. It makes them uncomfortable. So they'll subtly or not so subtly discourage you. They'll tell you your goals are unrealistic. They'll mock your side hustle. They'll tempt you to spend money you should be saving. They'll drag you back into old patterns. And if you're not careful, you'll let them. Because it's easier to stay comfortable with your current relationships than to make the hard choice to distance yourself from people who are holding you back. I'm not saying you need to cut off everyone you know, but I am saying you need to be honest about who's supporting your growth and who's hindering it, and you need to make decisions based on that honesty. When I was going from broke to rich, I had to make some painful relationship changes. I had friends who always wanted to go out to eat or to bars. That was our social pattern, but I couldn't afford that anymore. Not if I was serious about paying off debt and building wealth. So I started saying no. At first they were understanding. But after a few months of me saying no, they stopped inviting me. They made comments about how I'd changed, how I was too serious now, how I wasn't fun anymore. It hurt, but I realized something. Those relationships were based on shared consumption, not shared values. We bonded over spending money we didn't have on things we didn't need. Once I stopped participating in that, there wasn't much left. That was painful to realize. But it was also clarifying. I needed different relationships. I needed people who were building something, people who had goals, people who supported my growth instead of sabotaging it. So I started seeking out those people. I joined online communities of entrepreneurs and freelancers. I went to networking events. I reached out to people who were a few steps ahead of me and asked if I could learn from them. Slowly, I built a new circle. People who challenged me, people who celebrated my wins, people who held me accountable when I slipped. And my growth accelerated, because I was no longer fighting against the tide of my relationships. I was being pulled forward by them. This is the power of the right relationships. They create upward momentum. They normalize success instead of mediocrity. They make wealth building feel like the default instead of the exception. Here's the framework for evaluating your relationships. There are 3 types of people in your life: lifters, anchors, and neutrals. Lifters are people who elevate you. They encourage your goals. They celebrate your wins without jealousy. They challenge you to be better. They introduce you to opportunities. They model success in ways you can learn from. Being around lifters makes you want to level up. Anchors are people who drag you down. They criticize your ambitions. They mock your efforts. They tempt you to make bad decisions. They normalize mediocrity and make you feel weird for wanting more. Being around anchors makes you want to shrink and play small. Neutrals are people who neither help nor hurt. They're fine. They're pleasant. But they don't move the needle on your growth. They're not invested in your success or failure. They're just there. Here's what you need to do. Make a list of the 15 people you spend the most time with. Include family, friends, coworkers, everyone. Next to each name, write whether they're a lifter, anchor, or neutral. Be brutally honest. This isn't about whether you like them or whether they're good people. This is about their impact on your financial and personal growth. Once you have your list, count how many lifters you have. If you have fewer than 5 lifters in your top 15, you have a relationship problem. Your environment is not set up to support your success. You need to make changes. For anchors, you have 3 options. Transform the relationship, distance yourself, or cut ties completely. Let's talk about transformation first. Sometimes people are anchors because they don't understand what you're trying to do. They think you're being weird or obsessive about money when really you're just being intentional. In these cases, a direct conversation can help. Here's a script. Hey, I want to talk to you about something. I've been making some changes in my life. I'm focused on getting out of debt and building financial stability. That means I'm saying no to things I used to say yes to, like going out to expensive dinners or buying things impulsively. I need you to understand that this is important to me. I'm not judging how you spend your money, but I need support for how I'm choosing to spend mine. Can you support me in this? If they say yes and their behavior changes, great. The relationship is transformed. They've become a neutral, or maybe even a lifter. But if they say yes and nothing changes, or if they get defensive and dismissive, then you know they're not willing to support your growth. In that case, you need to distance yourself or cut ties. Distancing looks like this. You stop initiating hangouts. You respond to their messages, but less frequently. You decline invitations politely. You spend less time together. You're not mean. You're not dramatic. You just gently pull back. Most of the time, the relationship will naturally fade. Sometimes they'll notice and ask what's going on. If that happens, you can have another direct conversation. You can say, I care. Now let's talk about building new relationships with lifters. Because it's not enough to remove the anchors. You need to actively cultivate relationships with people who elevate you. Here's how. First, identify where lifters hang out. Online communities focused on entrepreneurship, investing, and personal development. Networking events in your city. Co-working spaces, conferences, masterminds. Anywhere people who are serious about growth congregate. Second, show up consistently. Don't just attend one event and expect to make deep connections. Show up every week or every month. Become a familiar face. Third, provide value first. Don't go in asking for favors or trying to extract. Go in asking how you can help. Offer your skills. Make introductions. Share resources. Be generous. People remember those who give without expecting anything in return. Fourth, follow up. After you meet someone interesting, send a message. Reference something specific from your conversation. Suggest a way to continue the relationship. A coffee chat. A collaboration. An introduction to someone they should meet. Make it easy for them to say yes. Fifth, Nurture the relationships over time. Check in periodically. Share wins. Ask for advice. Celebrate their wins. Be genuinely interested in their journey. Here's a real example of how I built a relationship with a lifter. I attended a local entrepreneur meetup. There was a guy there named Derek who ran a successful marketing agency. I introduced myself and asked him about his business. We talked for about 15 minutes. At the end, I said, "This was great. I'd love to learn more about how you scaled your agency. Would you be open to a coffee chat sometime?" He said, "Sure." I followed up 2 days later with a message. I referenced a specific thing he'd said that resonated with me. I suggested 2 times for coffee. He picked one. We met. I came prepared with specific questions. I didn't waste his time. I was genuinely curious about his journey. At the end, I asked if there was anything I could help him with. He mentioned he was looking for a copywriter for a project. I connected him with someone I knew. A month later, he messaged me saying the copywriter worked out great and asking if I wanted to grab lunch. That lunch turned into a regular monthly meetup. Derek became a mentor and eventually a friend. He introduced me to other entrepreneurs. He gave me advice that saved me from making costly mistakes. He became one of my most valuable relationships. All because I showed up, provided value, and nurtured the connection. Here's your relationship action plan. Week 1. Make your list of 15 people. Categorize them as lifters, anchors, or neutrals. Week 2. Have one direct conversation with an anchor. Use the script. Try to transform the relationship. Week 3. Distance yourself from one anchor who didn't respond positively to the conversation. Week 4. Research 3 communities or events where lifters hang out. Week 5. Attend one event. Don't try to make lifelong friends. Just show up and observe. Get comfortable with the environment. Week 6. Attend a second event. This time, introduce yourself to at least 3 people. Exchange contact info. Week 7. Follow up with those 3 people. Suggest a coffee chat with one of them. Week 8. Have the coffee chat. Provide value. Ask how you can help. Week 9 through 12. Continue attending events. Continue following up. Continue nurturing new relationships. By the end of 12 weeks, you should have at least 5 new connections with lifters. You should have distanced yourself from at least 2 anchors. Your environment will be noticeably different. Your trajectory will be noticeably different. Now let's talk about the relapse proofing plan for relationships. Because here's what happens. You distance yourself from anchors. You build new relationships with lifters. Everything is going great. Then something happens. You get lonely. You miss the old relationships. You start to question whether you overreacted. You reach back out to an anchor. You fall back into old patterns. And suddenly you're off track again. This is incredibly common. So you need strategies to prevent it. Strategy 1. Create a relationship journal. Every time you interact with an anchor and feel worse afterward, write it down. What happened? How they made you feel? Why the relationship isn't healthy? When you're tempted to reconnect, read the journal. Remind yourself why you distanced yourself in the first place. Strategy 2. Build a strong enough new network that you don't need the old one. Loneliness drives us back to unhealthy relationships. If you have 5 or 10 strong relationships with lifters, you won't feel the pull to reconnect with anchors. So prioritize building new connections. Strategy 3. Remember your why. You're not distancing yourself from people because you're mean or because you think you're better than them. You're doing it because your future depends on it. You're doing it because you refuse to let other people's limitations become your limitations. Write that down. Read it when you're tempted to backslide. Strategy 4. Give yourself permission to grieve. Losing relationships, even unhealthy ones, is a loss. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to miss people. That doesn't mean you made the wrong decision. Feel the feelings, but don't act on them. Don't reconnect just because you're sad. Let the feelings pass and stay committed to your path. Now let's talk about protection. Because building wealth is pointless if you can't keep it. And there are lots of ways to lose wealth. Lawsuits, accidents, health issues, bad business decisions, fraud, market crashes. Life is unpredictable. Wealth without protection is fragile. You need systems in place to guard what you've built. This is the part most people ignore until it's too late. They build up some wealth and then something happens and it's gone. All that work, all that sacrifice, wiped out. Don't let that be you. Protection has 3 layers: emergency funds, insurance, and legal structures. We've already talked about emergency funds. That's your first line of defense. 3 to 6 months of living expenses in cash. This protects you from short-term emergencies without having to go into debt or liquidate investments at a bad time. If you don't have this yet, building it is your top priority. Once you have your emergency fund, the next layer is insurance. You need health insurance. If you get seriously sick or injured without insurance, you could lose everything. Medical debt is one of the leading causes of bankruptcy. Don't take that risk. If you have a job that offers health insurance, use it. If you don't, buy a plan on the marketplace. Yes, it's expensive, but it's way less expensive than a $100,000 hospital bill. Let me break down the insurance you actually need. Health insurance is non-negotiable. Look for a plan with a reasonable deductible that you could actually afford to pay if something happened. A $5,000 deductible might save you money on premiums, but if you don't have $5,000 saved, it's a trap. You also want to make sure the plan covers the doctors and hospitals you'd actually use. Network restrictions can be devastating if you end up needing care that's out of network. Read the fine print. Understand what's covered and what's not. Call the insurance company if you have questions. This is your financial life. Take it seriously. Beyond health insurance, you need life insurance if anyone depends on your income. If you have kids or a spouse or aging parents who rely on you financially, you need term life insurance. Here's how it works. You pay a monthly premium. If you die during the term, your beneficiaries get a payout. If you don't die, you don't get anything back. It's pure insurance, no investment component. This is what makes it cheap. A healthy 30-year-old can get a $500,000 20-year term policy for like $30 a month. For someone in their 40s, it might be $60 or $80 a month. Still incredibly cheap for the protection it provides. And it ensures that if something happens to you, your family won't be financially destroyed. They'll have money to cover the mortgage, living expenses, and your kids' education. How much coverage do you need? A common rule is 10 times your annual income. If you make $50,000 a year, get $500,000 in coverage. If you make $100,000, get $1 million. This ensures your family can replace your income for a decade, which gives them time to adjust and rebuild. Don't get whole life or universal life insurance unless you have a very specific estate planning reason. Those policies are expensive and come with high commissions for the salespeople who push them. For most people, term life is all you need. You also need disability insurance. This protects your income if you become unable to work due to illness or injury. Most people don't think about this. But statistically, you're way more likely to become disabled than to die young. 1 in 4 workers will experience a disability before retirement. If you can't work, how will you pay your bills? Disability insurance replaces a portion of your income, usually 50 to 60%, so you can keep living. Some employers offer short-term and long-term disability insurance. If yours does, sign up. It's usually cheap or even free. If your employer doesn't offer it, buy an individual policy. It'll cost more, but it's worth it. Look for a policy with own occupation coverage. This means if you can't do your specific job, you get paid, even if you could theoretically do some other type of work. This is important. Without own occupation coverage, the insurance company might deny your claim because you could technically work at a lower paying job. As your wealth grows, you'll need more sophisticated. Now let's talk about legal structures. If you're running a business, you should form an LLC or corporation. This creates a legal separation between your personal assets and your business liabilities. If your business gets sued, they can't come after your personal bank accounts and house. This is basic asset protection. Without this separation, you're operating as a sole proprietor, which means you and your business are legally the same entity. If someone sues your business, they're suing you personally. Everything you own is at risk. Forming an LLC costs a few $100s and takes a couple hours. It's worth it. Let me tell you a story about why this matters. I know someone, we'll call him Tom, who ran a consulting business. He was making about $200,000 a year. He never bothered to form an LLC because it seemed like unnecessary paperwork. He was just a consultant. What could go wrong? One day he gave advice to a client. The client followed his advice. Things didn't go well. The client lost money. The client sued Tom for bad advice. The lawsuit claimed $500,000 in damages. Because Tom didn't have an LLC, the lawsuit was against him personally. His personal bank accounts, his house, his retirement savings. Everything was at risk. He hired a lawyer, spent $40,000 defending himself. Eventually, they settled for $150,000. Tom had to liquidate investments, drain his emergency fund, and take out a loan to pay the settlement. It destroyed him financially, wiped out years of wealth building, all because he didn't spend a few $100s to form an LLC. Don't be Tom. If you're running a business, protect yourself with proper legal structure. Here's how to set up an LLC. Step 1. Choose a name for your business. Make sure it's available in your state. You can check on your state's business registration website. Step 2. File articles of organization with your state. This is usually done online. You pay a filing fee, typically between $50 and $500 depending on your state. Step 3. Create an operating agreement. This is a document that outlines how your LLC will operate, who the owners are, how profits are distributed, how decisions are made. You can find templates online or hire a lawyer to draft one. Step 4. Get an EIN from the IRS. This is a tax ID number for your business. It's free and takes about 5 minutes online. Step 5. Open a business bank account using your EIN. Keep your business finances separate from your personal finances. This is crucial. If you mix them, you can lose the liability protection. Step 6. File any necessary annual reports and pay any annual fees to maintain your LLC. The requirements vary by state. Some states have annual fees of a few $100s. Some have nothing. Check your state's requirements. This whole process can be done in a weekend. It's not complicated, but it's essential. As your wealth grows even more, you'll want to think about trusts and estate planning. A trust is a legal entity that holds assets on behalf of beneficiaries. There are lots of different types of trusts for different purposes. Revocable trusts, irrevocable trusts, charitable trusts, special needs trusts. Each serves a different function. For most people starting out, you don't need to worry about complex trust structures. But once your net worth crosses $500,000 or you have kids, you should at least have a will and probably a revocable living trust. A will says who gets your assets when you die. A revocable living trust does the same thing but avoids probate, which is the court process for distributing assets. Probate is slow, expensive, and public. A trust avoids all that. Here's your protection action plan. Week 1. Review your health insurance. Do you have coverage? If not, get a quote and sign up. Week 2. If you have dependents, get a quote for term life insurance. Compare quotes from at least 3 companies. Pick one and apply. Week 3. Check if your employer offers disability insurance. If yes, sign up. If no, get a quote for an individual policy. Week 4. If your net worth is over $50,000, get a quote for umbrella insurance. Week 5. If you're running a business and haven't formed an LLC, research the requirements in your state. Week 6. File your LLC paperwork. Week 7. Open a business bank account and get an EIN. Week 8. If your net worth is over $200,000 or you have kids, schedule a consultation with an estate planning attorney. Week 9 through 12. Implement any recommendations from the attorney. Set up your will or trust. Update beneficiaries on your accounts. Make sure everything is in order. By the end of 12 weeks, you should have all the basic protections in place. You'll sleep better knowing your wealth is protected. Now let's talk about the relapse-proofing plan for protection. Because here's what happens. You set up all the insurance and legal structures. Everything is in place. Then time passes. Your situation changes. You get a raise. You get married. You have kids. Your business grows. But you don't update your protections. Your life insurance coverage is too low. Your LLC operating agreement doesn't reflect your current business structure. Your will names beneficiaries who are no longer relevant. And suddenly your protection is inadequate. Or worse, you let policies lapse because you're not using them and it feels like a waste of money. Then something happens and you're exposed. Here's how to prevent that. Set a calendar reminder for the first week of January every year. Label it Protection Audit. When that reminder pops up, you spend 2 hours reviewing all your protections. Check that all your insurance policies are active. Review coverage amounts. Are they still adequate given your current income and assets? Review your LLC and make sure your annual filings are up to date. Review your will or trust. Do the beneficiaries still make sense? Have there been major life changes that require updates? Make a list of anything that needs updating. Then spend the next few weeks making those updates. This annual audit ensures your protections grow with your wealth and life circumstances. It ensures you're never caught exposed when disaster strikes. Now we're at the final and most important piece, the identity shift. Because here's the truth. You can learn all the strategies. You can execute all the tactics. You can build income and pay off debt and invest and protect your wealth. But if you don't change your identity, you'll eventually sabotage it all and end up right back where you started. I've seen this happen over and over. People make huge progress. They go from broke to financially stable. They start building wealth. And then something happens. They make a bad decision. They blow a bunch of money. They stop doing the things that were working. And they slide back. Why? Because their identity didn't change. They were still a broke person who temporarily had money. And broke people don't keep money. They find ways to lose it. Because being broke is part of their identity, and people always act in accordance with their identity. This is the deepest work. This is the work that makes everything else stick. You have to shift from seeing yourself as a broke person trying to make money to seeing yourself as a wealthy person managing abundance. That sounds like semantics, but it's not. It's everything. Your identity determines your behavior. If you see yourself as broke, you'll act broke. You'll make short-term decisions. You'll focus on immediate gratification. You'll be reactive and desperate. You'll accept less than your worth because you don't believe you deserve more. But if you see yourself as wealthy, you'll act wealthy. You'll make long-term decisions. You'll delay gratification. You'll be strategic and patient. You'll demand what you're worth because you know your value. Your identity is the operating system that runs all your decisions. If you don't upgrade the operating system, nothing else will matter. So how do you change your identity? Not with affirmations, not with visualization alone. Those can help, but they're not enough. You change your identity with evidence. You collect proof that you are the person you want to become. Every time you choose to invest instead of spend, that's evidence. Every time you send a proposal instead of scrolling social media, that's evidence. Every time you say no to a toxic relationship or a bad opportunity, that's evidence. Every time you follow through on a commitment you made to yourself, that's evidence. You're building a case. You're proving to yourself that you are becoming a different person. And at some point, the weight of evidence becomes overwhelming. You can't deny it anymore. You're not the same person you used to be. The old identity dissolves. The new identity solidifies. And once that happens, the behaviors that used to require willpower become automatic. They're just who you are now. Think about it this way. Right now, you probably don't struggle with brushing your teeth. You just do it. It's part of your identity. You're the kind of person who brushes their teeth. You don't have to motivate yourself or use willpower. You just do it because that's who you are. That's the goal with wealth-building behaviors. You want to become the kind of person who invests automatically, the kind of person who tracks their spending, the kind of person who seeks out income opportunities, the kind of person who protects their time and focuses on high-value activities. You want those behaviors to become so ingrained in your identity that they don't require effort. They're just who you are. And you get there by collecting evidence, by taking action consistently, even when it's hard, by proving to yourself over and over that you're becoming the person you want to be. Let me tell you about the moment my identity shifted. I'd been working the system for about 8 months. I'd paid off my credit card debt. I had $5,000 in savings. I was making consistent income from freelancing and a couple passive income streams. Things were going well, but I still felt like an imposter. Like I was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Like at any moment, it could all fall apart and I'd be back to being broke. Then one day, something happened. A potential client wanted to hire me. It was a big project, $5,000. Old me would have said yes immediately, would have been grateful for the opportunity, would have bent over backwards to make it work. But this client was being difficult, making unreasonable demands, wanting deliverables that were outside the scope we'd discussed, wanting everything done in an impossibly short timeline. And I realized something. I didn't need this project. I had other clients. I had other income streams. I had savings. I didn't have to say yes to bad deals anymore. So I told the client no. I said, I appreciate your interest, but based on what you're describing, I don't think I'm the right fit for this project. I hope you find someone who can meet your needs. And I walked away from $5,000. Old me never would have done that. Old me was so desperate for money that I would have said yes to anything. But new me understood something old me didn't. My time and energy are valuable. My standards matter. I don't have to accept every opportunity just because money is attached to it. That decision, walking away from $5,000 because it wasn't a good fit, was the moment my identity shifted. I wasn't playing poor anymore. I wasn't desperate. I was a business owner with options, making strategic decisions about what work to take and what work to decline. That's wealthy person behavior. And once I did it once, it became easier to do it again and again until it became automatic. Now I turn down projects all the time if they're not a good fit. Not because I'm picky or difficult. Because I know my value and I protect my time and energy for work that's aligned with my goals. Here's the daily practice routine for identity formation. Every morning, before you start work, you're going to do a 5-minute identity check-in. You're going to ask yourself 3 questions. What would a wealthy person do today? What's one action I can take today that provides evidence of my new identity? What's one old behavior I need to avoid today? Write down your answers. Then, throughout the day, refer back to those answers. When you're faced with a decision, ask yourself, what would a wealthy person do in this situation? At the end of the day, do a 2-minute review. What evidence did I collect today? What old behaviors showed up and how did I handle them? What will I do better tomorrow? Write it down. This daily practice keeps your identity front and center. It makes the shift conscious and intentional instead of hoping it happens by accident. Here's your identity formation challenge. For the next 90 days, you're going to collect evidence every single day. You're going to create a document called My Wealth Identity Evidence. Every day, you write down at least one piece of evidence that you're becoming a wealthy person. It can be big or small. I invested $100 today. I said no to an opportunity that didn't align with my goals. I spent 2 hours on income-producing activities. I had a hard conversation with a friend about my boundaries. I tracked my spending. I read for 30 minutes about investing. Anything that demonstrates you're acting like the person you're becoming. After 90 days, you'll have at least 90 pieces of evidence. Probably way more, because some days you'll collect multiple pieces. When you read through that document, you won't be able to deny it anymore. You're not the same person you were 90 days ago. The identity has shifted. The evidence is overwhelming. Let me tell you about someone who did this challenge. Her name was Rachel. When I met her, she was 32 and had never made more than $35,000 in a year. She'd grown up poor. Her parents were poor. Her friends were poor. Being poor was her identity. It was all she knew. I walked her through the broke-to-rich system. She did the work. She started freelancing. She paid off debt. She built an emergency fund. But she was struggling with the identity shift. She still saw herself as poor. She still made decisions from a place of scarcity, so I gave her the 90-day evidence challenge. She committed to it. Day 1, her evidence was, I sent 3 proposals to potential clients instead of watching Netflix. Day 7, I invested $50 into my brokerage account. Day 14, I said no when my friend wanted me to go shopping. Day 30, I raised my rates by 25% for a new client. Day 60, I paid off the last of my credit card debt. Day 90, I have $5,000 in savings for the first time in my life. When we met after 90 days, she was a different person. Not just financially. Her energy was different. Her confidence was different. She showed me the document with all 90 days of evidence. She said, I used to think I was just a poor person who sometimes made money. But looking at this, I can't think that anymore. I'm not that person. I'm someone who builds wealth. That's my identity now. And she was right. Her behavior after that 90-day period reflected that new identity. She continued building wealth. She hit 6 figures in net worth within 2 years. She changed careers to something more lucrative. She moved to a better apartment. She invested consistently. She built multiple income streams, not because she was forcing herself to, because that's who she was now. The identity shift made everything else inevitable. Here's the psychology behind why this works. Your brain is constantly looking for evidence to confirm its beliefs about who you are. If you believe you're broke, your brain will find evidence of that. You'll notice the bills, the debts, the financial struggles. You'll interpret neutral events as proof of your poverty, and that evidence will reinforce the identity, creating a loop. But if you deliberately collect evidence of a new identity, you hack the loop. You're feeding your brain proof that you're becoming someone different. At first it'll feel fake, forced, like you're lying to yourself. But as the evidence accumulates, the brain has to reconcile the dissonance. You can't simultaneously believe you're a broke person and have 90 days of evidence showing wealthy person behavior. Something has to give. Eventually, the brain updates the belief. The identity shifts. And once that happens, the behavior becomes automatic. You don't have to try anymore. You just are. Here's another layer to identity formation. The language you use. The words you say to yourself and others shape your identity. If you constantly say things like, I'm so bad with money, I can never save anything, I'm just not the type of person who builds wealth, you're reinforcing a broke identity. Every time you say those words, you're collecting evidence against yourself. But if you change your language, you change your identity. Instead of I'm bad with money, say I'm learning to manage money better. Instead of I can never save, say I'm building my savings habit. Instead of I'm not the type of person who builds wealth, say I'm becoming a wealthy person. Notice the difference. One set of statements locks you into a fixed identity. The other set assumes growth and change. One set is evidence of limitation. The other set is evidence of possibility. Here's your language audit challenge. For 1 week, pay attention to every statement you make about money and yourself. Catch yourself when you use limiting language. Interrupt the pattern. Say, actually, that's not true anymore. I'm becoming someone who, and state the new identity. It'll feel awkward at first. You'll feel like you're being overly positive or lying to yourself. But you're not. You're choosing which story to tell. The old story kept you broke. The new story is making you wealthy. Choose the new story. Here's one more identity formation tool. Role models and reference points. Your brain needs examples of what a wealthy person looks like. If everyone you know is broke, your brain doesn't have a clear picture of the identity you're trying to adopt. You need reference points. Find 3 people who embody the identity you want. They can be people you know personally or public figures. Study them. How do they think? How do they make decisions? What values do they operate from? What behaviors do they exhibit consistently? Don't try to copy them exactly, but use them as reference points. When you're faced with a decision, ask yourself, what would this person do? Over time, their patterns will become your patterns. Their identity will influence your identity. I had 3 role models when I was going from broke to rich. One was a guy I knew who'd built a successful freelance business. One was an author who wrote about personal finance and investing. One was an entrepreneur I followed online who talked about building multiple income streams. I studied all of them. I listened to their interviews. I read their books and articles. I observed their decision-making. And slowly, their patterns became my patterns. I started thinking like them, acting like them, making decisions like them. I didn't lose my own identity, but I absorbed principles from their identities that helped me become who I wanted to be. That's the power of role models. They give your brain a template to follow. Here's your final identity exercise. Write a letter to yourself from 1 year in the future, dated exactly 1 year from today. In this letter, your future self is writing to your current self. Your future self has successfully made the identity shift. Your future self is a wealthy person managing abundance. In the letter, your future self describes what life is like, how much money you have in the bank, what income streams you've built, how you spend your time, how you feel about money, how you feel about yourself, what decisions you made that got you there, what old behaviors you let go of, what new behaviors you adopted. Write this letter in present tense as if it's already happened. Be specific, be vivid, make it real. Then read this letter once a week for the next year. Let it serve as a North Star. Let it remind you of who you're becoming. And at the end of the year, read it one more time and compare it to your actual life. You'll be amazed at how much of it came true. Not because you predicted the future, but because you created it by becoming the person described in the letter. Here's the relapse-proofing plan for identity. Because here's what happens. You make progress. Your identity starts to shift. You're acting like a wealthy person. You're building momentum. Then something happens. A setback, a failure, a financial emergency. And suddenly, the old identity comes rushing back. You're broke again. You're scared again. You're desperate again. All the progress feels like it was fake, like you were just pretending and now the real you has shown up. This is the identity crisis moment. It happens to everyone. The question is whether you let it drag you back to the old identity or whether you use it to strengthen the new one. Here's what you do when the identity crisis hits. First, acknowledge it. Don't pretend it's not happening. Say to yourself, I'm experiencing an identity crisis right now. The old identity is trying to reassert itself. That's normal. It's expected. It doesn't mean I've failed. Second, go back to your evidence document. Read through all the proof you've collected that you're a different person now. Let the evidence ground you. Let it remind you that the progress wasn't fake. It was real. You made it happen. Third, take one small action that aligns with your new identity. Even if it's tiny, invest $10. Send one proposal. Track your spending for 1 day. Collect one new piece of evidence. That action breaks the spiral. It proves to yourself that the new identity is still there. Fourth, reach out to someone in your new circle. A lifter, someone who knows the journey you're on. Talk to them about what you're experiencing. Let them remind you of who you're becoming. Fifth, zoom out. Look at the big picture. Yes, you had a setback, but compare where you are now to where you were a year ago. The trajectory is still up. The progress is still real. One setback doesn't erase all of that. Sixth, recommit. Make a decision right now to keep going, to keep collecting evidence, to keep acting like the person you're becoming. The identity shift isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice. You choose it every day. Sometimes multiple times a day. And the more you choose it, the more solid it becomes. And here's what's going to happen. 6 months from now, you're going to look at your bank account and barely recognize it. You're going to have more money than you've ever had. You're going to have systems running that generate income automatically. You're going to have confidence you didn't have before. 1 year from now, being broke is going to feel like a story about someone else. You'll remember the struggle, but it won't define you anymore. You'll be a different person. A person who builds wealth. A person who takes ownership. A person who executes. 2 years from now, people are going to ask you how you did it. And you're going to tell them the same thing I'm telling you right now. It's not about luck. It's not about having advantages. It's about mindset and systems and relentless execution. It's about destroying the beliefs that keep you poor and replacing them with beliefs that build wealth. It's about taking action even when you're scared, especially when you're scared. It's about consistency over months and years, not motivation over days and weeks. It's about becoming the kind of person who builds wealth instead of just wishing you had it. But before we close, I want to give you one more tool, a 30-day micro-challenge calendar. Because the gap between knowing and doing is where most people fail. You've heard everything I've shared. You understand the principles. But understanding doesn't create change. Action creates change. So for the next 30 days, you're going to take one specific action every single day. Small actions, achievable actions, but actions that, when compounded, will transform your financial life. Here's the calendar. Day 1. Calculate your current net worth. Assets minus liabilities. Write the number down. This is your starting point. Day 2. List all sources of income and all expenses from last month. Create a simple budget. Day 3. Open a high-yield savings account if you don't have one. Transfer whatever you can afford to start your emergency fund, even if it's $25. Day 4. List 10 skills you could monetize. Don't filter, just brainstorm. Day 5. Pick one skill from your list. Write a one-paragraph description of a service you could offer using that skill. Day 6. Set up a profile on a freelancing platform. Use your service description. Day 7. Send 5 proposals to potential clients or reach out to 5 people who might need your service. Day 8. Review your debt. List every debt with amount owed, interest rate, and minimum payment. Day 9. Calculate how much extra you can afford to pay on your highest interest debt this month, even if it's just $50. Day 10. Set up an automatic extra payment on that debt. Schedule it for the day after your paycheck arrives. Day 11. Track every dollar you spend today. Write it down or use an app. Day 12. Track every dollar you spend today. Day 13. Track every dollar you spend today. Day 14. Review the last 3 days of spending. Identify one category where you can cut back without feeling deprived. Day 15. Open a brokerage account if you don't have one. Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. Day 16. Link your bank account to your brokerage account. Day 17. Buy your first index fund. Whatever amount you can afford, even if it's $50. Day 18. Set up an automatic monthly investment contribution. Day 19. Do a time audit. Track how you spend every hour today. Day 20. Categorize yesterday's hours as income-producing, necessary, or time-wasting. Day 21. Find 3 online communities or local events where people who are building wealth hang out. Day 22. Join one of those communities or sign up for one of those events. Day 23. Introduce yourself in the community or attend the event. Connect with at least one person. Day 24. Follow up with that person. Suggest a coffee chat or phone call. Day 25. Make a list of your 5 closest relationships. Categorize each as lifter, anchor, or neutral. Day 26. If you have any anchors, decide on a course of action. Transform distance or cut ties. Day 27. Have one direct conversation with someone who needs to hear about your new goals and boundaries. Day 28. Document one process in your business or work. Write down every step as if teaching someone else. Day 29. Research one automation tool that could save you time. Day 30. Write your identity statement. I am someone who. Complete it with 10 traits of a wealthy person. If you do all 30 of these actions, 1 per day for 30 days, you will be unrecognizable. You'll have an emergency fund started. You'll have income-generating activity launched. You'll have debt payoff in motion. You'll have investments happening automatically. You'll have time allocated to high-value activities. You'll have healthier relationships. You'll have systems documented. And most importantly, you'll have a new identity. You'll be someone who takes action, someone who builds wealth, someone who follows through. And that identity will carry you for the rest of your life. Let me share 2 more transformation stories before we close, because I want you to see that this works for people in all kinds of situations. The first story is about a guy named Marcus. He was 47 when I met him. He'd spent his entire adult life broke. He'd had good jobs. He'd made decent money at times. But he'd never built wealth. He spent everything he made. He had no savings, no investments, $60,000 in debt. He was terrified because retirement was getting closer and he had nothing. His wife was frustrated. His kids were watching him stress about money constantly. He felt like a failure. But he decided to try the system. He started with emergency income, He'd worked in IT for 20 years, so he offered consulting services to small businesses who needed tech help. Within a month, he had 3 clients paying him a total of $1,500 a month on the side. He used that money to attack his debt using the avalanche method. Every dollar went to the highest interest debt. After 6 months, he'd paid off $12,000. After a year, all $60,000 was gone. He was debt-free for the first time since his 20s. Then he focused on building wealth. He automated investments, $500 per month into index funds. He documented his consulting processes and hired a part-time assistant to handle some of the work. That freed up 10 hours a week, which he used to get more consulting clients. His side income grew to $4,000 per month. He was making more from... The second story is about a woman named Keisha. She was 26. She'd grown up in poverty. Her mom was a single parent working 2 jobs just to keep them housed and fed. Keisha had absorbed the belief that people like her didn't become wealthy. That was for other people. People with college degrees and family money and connections. She'd dropped out of community college because she couldn't afford it. She was working as a barista making $11 an hour, living paycheck to paycheck, sleeping on a friend's couch because she couldn't afford rent. She had $300 to her name and felt hopeless. But something in her refused to accept that this was her life forever. She found my content online and decided to try the system even though she was starting from less than zero. She started with skills she didn't even know she had. She was good at graphic design, self-taught, just messing around on free software. She created a Fiverr profile offering logo design for $25. Her first month, she made $200. Not much, but it was proof. She kept going. She raised her prices. She got better. After 3 months, she was making $1,000 a month on top of her barista job. After 6 months, $2,000 a month. She quit the barista job. She went all in on design. She built a portfolio. She started getting clients outside of Fiverr willing to pay premium prices. A year in, she was making $5,000 a month. She moved into her own apartment. She paid off the small debts she'd accumulated. She started investing. 2 years in, she was making $8,000 a month and had $30,000 in net worth. She'd gone from sleeping on a couch with $300 to running a successful business with real wealth. But again, she told me the transformation wasn't really about the money. It was about proving to herself that she wasn't limited by her circumstances, that her past didn't define her future, that she could become someone different. She went from believing wealthy people were a different species to knowing she was one of them. That identity shift unlocked everything. She's now 29. She crossed 6 figures in net worth last year. She's on track to be a millionaire by 35, and she's teaching other young women from similar backgrounds how to do the same thing. The broke girl sleeping on a couch became a wealthy woman creating wealth for others. That's the power of this system. That's what's possible when you combine the right strategies with the right identity. So what are you going to do? Are you going to listen to this and feel inspired for a day and then go back to your old patterns? Or are you going to actually do something? Are you going to make the list of skills and monetize one this week? Are you going to set up an automatic investment contribution today? Are you going to do the time audit and find 5 extra hours for income-producing activities? Are you going to evaluate your relationships and make the hard decisions? Are you going to write your new identity statement and start collecting evidence? Are you going to complete the 30-day micro-challenge calendar? The information is here. The system is complete. The examples are real. The only variable left is you, your decision, your action, your commitment. Everything else is noise. I went from $27 and an eviction notice to 6 figures in net worth in 1 year. Not because I'm special, not because I had some secret advantage, but because I made a decision and I built a system and I executed relentlessly even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Marcus went from $60,000 in debt and no savings at 47 to $200,000 a year and real wealth at 50. Keisha went from $300 and sleeping on a couch at 26 to 6 figures in net worth and a thriving business at 29. These aren't fairy tales. These are real people who use these exact systems. And if we can do it, you can do it. The blueprint is in your hands. The 30-day micro-challenge gives you a clear starting point. The systems remove the guesswork. The identity work makes it permanent. The relapse-proofing plans ensure you don't backslide. You have everything you need. The question is, will you use it? Will you actually do the work? Or will you be the same person a year from now, still wishing things were different but not willing to make them different? That's the only question that matters, and only you can answer it. Here's my challenge to you. Don't just listen to this and move on. Take out your phone or a piece of paper right now. Write down 3 commitments. 3 specific actions you're going to take in the next 72 hours. Not next week. Not when you feel ready. In the next 72 hours. Maybe it's creating your freelance profile. Maybe it's setting up your automatic investment. Maybe it's having a hard conversation with an anchor relationship. Maybe it's documenting your first process. 3 actions. Write them down. Put them in your calendar. 72 hours from now, those 3 things will be done. And those 3 actions will create momentum. They'll prove to yourself that you're serious, that this time is different, that you're becoming someone new. And then, after those first 3 actions, take 3 more. And 3 more after that. Build momentum, collect evidence, change your identity, transform your life. This isn't theory. This isn't motivation. This is a proven system that works if you work it. The only thing standing between you and wealth is the decision to start and the commitment to keep going. Make that decision right now. Your future is watching. What are you going to show them? Choose wisely. Your financial transformation starts the moment you take action on what you've learned here. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. Go build the life you deserve.